Hey everybody, this is Sheets, and I'm going to be taking an early look at the NBA slate for this evening. I'm going to be doing this solo without Bobby again, same as yesterday. Uh, I think that we did a good job of this yesterday with this particular format. Um, I always, I always think about the best way to deliver content at this part of the day. Um, with the NBA being such a time-sensitive sport as we get closer to lock, I go back and forth between just not doing anything at noon, um, or doing a complete deep dive game by game, which is what Bobby likes to do. Or I've also played around with just doing a top-down look and just doing lineup build stuff. I think yesterday we struck a pretty nice balance between doing some game by game stuff and also preparing for what the slate could bring, and also messing around with lineup building as well. So, in the absence of a clear answer of what we're supposed to do at this time, we're gonna go with that today. And again, when I'm here with Bobby, it's going to take a different, tact, more complete game by game. But we're going to do a little bit of a hybrid, similar to what we did yesterday. And I forgot to mention that I was going live today. I don't know if that impacted anything. So the first thing I want to do is I just want to make this subscriber only again as far as comments go. Hang on a second. I don't know how to do that by default, so I do have to waste a couple of seconds each time to do this. Subscribers, 20 minutes. Share replay, save. Okay. All right. So as I said, yesterday I thought we did a good job of it because we first recognized there was no value, and then we said that there could be good value coming with this Andre Drummond thing, and we were kind of prepared for it, and we did some lineup builds, and we actually discovered a neat little glitch in the projection system, which was nice. So it was pretty productive. So let's do the same thing that we did, I guess, yesterday. Let's pull up the slate first and see what this is all about, and then we'll get into the sheets. Then we'll get into some lineup builds as well. So you have a 6-game slate that is all within one time frame. So you don't have any real big late swap issues necessarily. I mean, if anybody was legit questionable in this 8:30 game, then that would obviously be really important. I mean, for example, I guess with Mitchell being questionable, that is actually pretty relevant, because if Craig Porter Jr. shows up as a really strong play, then we're going to have to make sure that he's out. Like, for example, let me see where I have him right now. We'll come back to all this in a minute, but where do I have, first of all, Porter? I mean, I don't have Porter projecting much of anything, so I guess that means that for now I'm projecting Donovan Mitchell is in, which is interesting considering he hasn't played in a while. So we're going to have to obviously keep an eye on that. Also, see that Luka is questionable. First end of the back-to-back here, and this is kind of interesting. It says the information might not be known until Wednesday evening. So obviously, if he's out, then the entire slate is different, and it is possible that we don't get that until these early games lock. So this is something to keep an eye on. Like right now, let me just see. As far as my projection, I haven't projected as in, but what do I know? Based on this body language, this language, it could be anything. I would say it's legit 50-50 whether he plays or not. And obviously, if he doesn't play, with Irving out already, then it's back to the same guys that we had dealt with last time, and that would be Hardy, Tim Hardaway Jr., Seth Curry, Lawson, Now Exum is in, which is a little different than last time, and Derek Jones. You know what I mean? Like actually, Derek Jones Jr. was in as well, but Josh Green remains out. So Dante Exum, depending on whether Luke is in, I mean, he could show up as an extremely strong play, but we just don't know yet. So that is something to look at when you're looking at the context of the slate. Is when does this news rate to come out, and how important is that news relative to the rest of the slate? Because if you're thinking of playing guys from 7 o'clock, they better be really, really strong plays. Otherwise, you're giving up that flexibility. And one thing I spoke with Bobby about, I want to talk to a couple of other people what their views on this are about how to adjust projections based on the impact of late flexibility. And we talked about this, and I've made this proposal that it's obviously more important. Like if all else is equal, it's better to have late games in your lineups, right? Because the later the games are, the more flexibility that you have to react to information if it comes. How much more important it is not quantifiable. I mean, at least to me, it may be quantifiable, but I don't know the answer. I do know that it's valuable. So how do you adjust for that when you're making lineups? You could just, the big, not the big brain play, like the small brain thing is just, I just can't deal with these early games, just X them out. But that's a little lazy, right? Because if you have a really good play in an early game, you don't want to just, I feel like Xing it out. But you should reduce your exposure on those games somewhat. So how do you handle that when there's no real way to quantify it? I mean, I'm toying with the idea of when you have a situation like this, to manually reduce the projections of the earlier games, or likewise, or raise the projections of the later games. It doesn't make a difference, but overweight the later games in some way. I think the best way that I would do that is just literally just reduce the team total of these early games by, I don't know by how much, but by something. I say 2 points. And what that does in Saber Sim is it trickles down to all the projections. Okay. So that's something that you can do. All right, that's a lot of theory, I guess. I guess we should get right to it. So with that in mind, okay, keeping in mind that these early games are going to be we should underweight them somewhat because of the possibility of this Dallas value. Let's take a look at these games and see if anything looks really, really good. Okay, because that's what we're going to need. So Toronto against Washington. Let's take a look at this. Let's see. So you got a couple of Toronto guys right near the top of the list at pretty good point per dollar. These are good plays. Okay. Now, I don't know if you're going to actually be able to get to this. Again, it's the same problem we have, is that, well, it's not the same problem, because you do have some value already. We'll get to that in a minute, but well, get right to it. I mean, Philadelphia has some very, very strong value at the center position between Paul Reed and also Mo Bamba. So you'll be able to play one of these guys, at least, maybe two. So you are going to be able to play these $8,000 guys. You might not be able to play the $12,000 guys, but you could be able to play the $8,000 guys. Okay. So that's worth discussing. So with that said, you have Siakam, Barnes, and Podol are strong plays. Okay, so let's get into this a little more, though. They're strong plays, but again, we have to downgrade them a little bit because they're early, and we're going to have to downgrade Podol a little bit because he might be taking away from whichever center you choose to play between Paul Reed and Mo Bamba. I think you should probably play one of them, and I'll just I'll get to that in a minute. I mean, I think that you should probably put either Paul Reed or Bamba at one of your center spots. So with that said, it makes Podol a little worse, but Yeah. Yeah. So Neil, it's we really I try my best to get the updated projections up before lock. I really try, and to be perfectly honest, it just depends on my schedule. Like if I mean, I put them out now, like the noon ones out now, and just not to give you too much of what's going on with me. Listen, I have my business, I run my stuff, and then I get home at like whatever, and between dinner and all this stuff, I try to make time from 6 to 7 if I can to both update projections and build my lineups. And usually I'm able to do it. I'm usually able to get it done at like 6 o'clock. But when the news comes out at 6:30, it's just nasty. Yeah. Yeah, the Zamir White one was actually kind of weird. Yeah, that was a very unique situation, Neil. I mean, I did everything, and I literally just my bad. I literally forgot to upload it. I did it, and I usually upload it. It was just a complete misclick, I guess, by me. I just never did. I ended up with like 70% Zamir White, so I should be punished, right? So I had to be punished. Um, uh, well, listen, I'm glad that you were able to get there. Get what you needed anyway. You know, um, yeah. Um, and they're listen, and they're really good. They use Line Star for most of their Shipit uses Line Star for most of their ownership projections, and I actually incorporate Line Star in my models. Like they're like they get like a certain weighting, and the Shipit they get a certain weighting as well. So what I do, I don't want to get too into this, but I track like all of the different models and all the different sites or whatever, and depending on how accurate they are, I do like kind of a weight, not a weighted average, like a weighted thing where I keep get everything together. And anyway, spent a lot of time on this, but yeah, those guys are pretty good. And then I put my little tweaks, my little spin or whatever it is. So yeah, the good news is that I think if you use my projections in football with the Zamir White slate, you'd probably be bankrupt right now. So sometimes we get lucky. It's interesting, Fred. One day I'll go through all my work on this. I didn't start tracking the ETR for basketball, and I only did them for football. And it's really interesting because I usually spend like a full there's many samples before I'll even include them, and just because of ETR's their reputation from like those guys for so long, I gave them a little break. Like I started incorporating their tracking like really early in the cycle. But as far as best projections, I mean, I really think that, boy, I can't believe I'm straying into this mess today, but you know what, you brought it up, so let's talk about it. I think that, and I've tracked both. I track ownership projections relative to accurate, and I've tracked player projections relative to accurate. But the problem with assessing a player projection relative to what their results are, it's so difficult. You know what I mean? Because if you project someone with a median of this and they end up with like that, it's hard to say, but you can't really prove that your projection was wrong. Oh, that's interesting, Fred. Maybe I'll start looking at the NBA. It's really hard to prove that a median projection is wrong based on the way the player performed. Okay? Because the player performs, they have all different ranges of outcomes. Where I think the ownership tracking is much more impactful. You know what I mean? Because that you project a certain thing for ownership, and then it is a certain thing. So you can project, you know what I mean? So you could gauge how good you were at that, as opposed to you project a median, your median projection, it is a median projection. You're not even saying that's what they're going to score. It means what your median projection is. You know what I mean? So it's really interesting. Yeah, oh, that's interesting, Fred. But one thing I will say about the football projections, are usually, I'll have to say, as far as the points are really close. The only place that it really differs a lot is when Cardi goes bananas with the Roto Grinder stuff. The Blitz can come up with some wild outliers, just because they're so heavy on like the dome stuff and the weather and all that. You know what I mean? That you might end up with a real big outlier sometimes in the Roto Grinder Blitz package. Yeah, sometimes they'll go kind of nuts. But aside from that, football is pretty close, across the board. Ownership is, but I'll tell you something really funny. So when I did and this should come as no surprise to anybody that knows anything about statistics and math or whatever, but when I did my full tracking, and I haven't done a full tracking in like a while, and back testing all this stuff, and I had rankings of like all of the sites based on for the ownership projections, and I have a bunch of them. Okay, always the winner, not always, but the most likely winner every single week, whether it was golf or MMA or basketball, the most likely winner every week was the average of all of them. That was always the most accurate, was the average of all of them. And for those of you that know about math, that's the way it works. The law of large numbers is kind of like that. Like when you get so many people just piling away, with opinions, the average of all those are usually going to be the most accurate. So that's kind of that's a pretty interesting thing to think about along the way. All right, back to this crap. So as I was saying, Podol, Barnes, Siakam for Toronto, but it is an early game. But let's put them in now. Let's put something in. Like let's get a lineup going. Let's get something. So we'll go Barnes. We'll put Podol in, but I don't know if I can do it, considering that we probably have to play one of these Philly dudes. Barnes, Podol, and Siakam, but they're certainly all in good spots. All right. So the aforementioned Philly versus Orlando. DraftKings has usually been pretty nasty about pricing guys up and being ahead of the game. And when Embiid was out, you would think that what they would be, and this is what they've been doing all year, is they just ramp. They may have missed the first one, but they ramp everybody up in case he's out again, but they missed it this time. They left everybody pretty much the same. And for that reason, I guess all of these Philly guys, we'll get to the centers in a minute, but including them, like all these normal Philly guys are just, locks. I mean, I shouldn't say lock, you know what I mean? Like they all look like amazing values between Maxey, Harris, Melton, Oubre, and then one of the two between Reed and Bamba. Now, okay, in the last game, Reed got into foul trouble, and it was not his day. He had 10 fantasy points in 17 minutes, and it was, in fact, Mo Bamba's day. He got the 26 minutes, 7 for 8 from the field, 3 for 3 from 3. You know what I mean? And 33 fantasy points. I think it is very ambitious to expect any of these numbers to be the same, from the minutes to the field goal percentage to the 3-point percentage. You know what I mean? 1 turnover, 2 steals. You know what I mean? 2 assists, 33. You know what I mean? So even if it went absolutely perfectly for him, I mean, it's still like only 8x. Okay. So I do think that one of those guys you're probably going to have to play. But let's take a look. Let's take a look at let's go back to this. You see what it looks like. So, all right. Maxey, Harris, Reed, Melton, Oubre, like all these guys look really, really good. But curiously, I mean, like I was expecting to see them like all at the top. I wasn't expecting them to be even. I was expecting to be like 1, 2, 3, or 5. So there are guys that are getting in here. Like these Toronto guys rate higher than, for example, Melton and Oubre. And as far as the centers go, let's see how they rate now. Paul Reed rates to be the best one, and then Bamba down here, a little worse. You could make your case for either of them, honestly. And you know the great. I mean, you know how it works, right? Bamba had like a really good game. They start him, and then Reed smashes. Okay, so don't worry about who's starting necessarily. Saw what happened with what's his name last night. I just knew it with the Moses Brown thing. We talked about this. I talked about this live with Bobby. I'm like, I want Ayton to be out so that I could play Moses Brown if he does not start. And he says, he says, well, it should be the Dior guy that starts. I'm like, well, that'd be fine. Because if they start Moses Brown, then the other guy's probably to play. And that's exactly what happened. They started Moses Brown. He was 3K. People played him. And the other guy went completely ballistic at no ownership. So shame on me for not leaving enough salary for me to make all that work. That was really, really bad. Nonetheless. So I guess what I'm noticing here, so Bamba and Reed are good, but I was expecting really these Philly guys to be a little bit better. But what I am noticing is that we have this issue that I talked about. You have Toronto, Philly, 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 Toronto, Toronto, Philly, Philly, Toronto, all these guys, and they're both early. So here's a question, and I wish there was an answer. How big of a deal is it to wait for Dallas? Or more to or also like Donovan Mitchell, for example. Like, how big of a deal is it to wait? Because you're going to have to, these are tremendous plays, at least based on my rankings. And this is the way you got to think about it when you get closer to lock. Like Neil said, we update the projections, and it's now 6:30, and the projections are up. You have to be able to now look at this and say, okay, what do I do? And these are the types of decisions you make. Is it big enough to replace, to gamble on the fact that maybe Luka is out? Like if you play Toronto's and Philly guys and then Luka is out, how upset are you going to be? All right, let's look at some of these others. So Milwaukee and Brooklyn. That's now 7:30. So you think about this. It is the story of the slate, right? It's further along in the slate. It's a little less likely that you're waiting on the Dallas news, but it's possible. So let's see. Who's it? Knicks? Is it Knicks? No, Milwaukee, Brooklyn. So these guys got to be a pretty good play to get in here. And yeah, so you have Giannis at 11K. I suppose he's a good play. And I don't see anybody from Brooklyn. No, I got Michael Bridges. And that's pretty much it. Okay. So, but they do rate significantly below these other. Well, I shouldn't say significantly. So if for example, like right off the bat, that Luka is out, then you could probably get to Giannis because you'll probably get, the Jaden Hardy value from Dallas will open up. And between that and Mo Bamba or Paul Reed, then you could play Giannis. But if you don't know that you're going to get that Jaden Hardy value from the Dallas game, it might be difficult to play Giannis. And what you could do, like I said, is you could play Giannis and hope that you get the Hardy value, and you play him right off the bat. But if you're wrong, number one, you don't get Hardy as such a great play, and you don't get to play Luka, which you probably do want to play if he plays. So this game is not a real priority except for this Giannis decision. And I don't know if it's such a huge deal for me to go play, what's his name? Michael Bridges. I mean, it's the best one that I have here, but, not that big a deal. All right, so now we're getting to at least the point where we should probably supposed to know what's going on. So Knicks OKC. This is a very interesting projection I have here. So I have Julius Randle projected really, really well in this game. Right, even better from a point per dollar perspective than say Scotty Barnes. I mean, he's getting ownership, I guess, but this is a little bit surprising to me. I think that he's going to be lower owned than Scotty Barnes, like for example. I think he's probably lower owned. Well, should I say that to Maxey? Maybe people will do what I think and maybe should wait a little bit. But nonetheless, Randall looks like a really good play here. What's weird is I have nothing on OKC. No, you know what I have? Okay, so here's what we have. We have Shea, who has the same issues as the others. So you can really only play Shea if, well, maybe you can play Shea anyway. Maybe you could play Shea with just the Philly value. We'll see when Saberson runs these. But certainly, if you think if Luka's out, then you could play Shea if you want. Just before I forget, all these other point per dollar plays in the Knicks. So Brunson is just too expensive today. I mean, relative to these other 8,600s up here. Hartenstein, bad position for him. I mean, just too much better value there. So for me, and Barrett, not today. Okay, they're better 5,900s today. Look at Melton, Oubre, Anunoby. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not the Barrett day today. So in this game, I mean, we're just probably playing Randall and maybe Shea if that value opens up. Okay, Phoenix, Houston. Another 8 o'clock game. And let's see what this looks like. Sengun smashed yesterday. He's on a back-to-back today. He's the only one that's showing up. No, Nurkic as well. So you have two centers again. So you have Sengun, you have Nurkic, and then it kind of falls apart a little bit. Where is Jabari Smith on this list? He's way down on the list today. So what about Eason? What's his problem today? Is he? I mean, he's not showing up as such a great play either. So I guess because of the back-to-back, maybe. So it's either Sengun or Nurkic or nothing. And again, because probably one of your centers is going to be taken up by Bamba or Reed or Pirtle for that matter. I don't know if you can really justify. I mean, I shouldn't say you can't justify them. They have such big ceilings, specifically Sengun. But I don't know, on a back-to-back like this, I've seen them rest Sengun in situations like this. I don't know. But those are definitely the only two that I would think about from this game. All right, so now we get to Cleveland, Dallas, and unfortunately, we just don't know what to do, right? If I knew Luka was playing, I mean, let's do this by hand for a second, okay? Just for fun. All right. Let's just say that we knew Luka was playing. And this is going to answer the question about all those other studs we talked about earlier. So if you played Luka or any of these guys, right, they're expensive, and let's say you played Bamba over here, all right, you're at 5,700 a guy, and you could do this like really easily because of all these Philly guys and these Toronto guys. They're all like under 6K. You know, let's remind ourselves of some of these prices. You have Pirtle, but Melton 58, Oubre 57, and Anunoby 59, right? So you can make all this work and play Luka. You can play Luka already, okay? Which is an interesting kind of revelation here. I don't need to fill all those guys in. You remember all those 5,600 guys. And by the way, one of them can certainly be that aforementioned Jakob Pirtle. You know, that would be a pretty, I mean, not to, go too bananas with this, but let's just say, this, where's the Toronto guy? I don't know. This, where's Tobias Harris? I mean, even 6,400, this, I mean, this plays, Toronto's, Phillies, you could play Luka. So all this can work. So what that means is that the other thing you could do, you'll be able to get in Giannis in the same type of thing. You'll be able to get in Giannis in the same way if that's what you opt to do. Okay. And again, as far as Cleveland goes, I mean, just can't do anything until you know what's going on with Cleveland, with Donovan Mitchell. If he's out, I presume that even though he's 6,600 or whatever, that's going to be fine for Porter. I don't, Eric. It's just, you know what? I'll get to that in a second. Let me just see this a second. Donovan Mitchell, I mean, I can't get to him at 9,900 here. I mean, maybe you're supposed to, but I can't do that. I mean, I will say he's the only guy in that price range. Okay. Other guys on Dallas. Yeah, you mentioned Lively. Yeah, I mean it's fine. He's pretty good at 5,500. Again, it's a weird price though. I mean it's a weird position. Is he a better play than Hurdle? I don't know. Certainly doesn't project that way, and it's not as if he's unowned. One thing I will say is that he does. This is more of a basketball observation, which take this with a grain of salt, but he does seem to have quite a bit of chemistry with Luka. Luka looks for him quite a bit, with pick and rolls and all kinds of stuff. So listen, when you have Luka looking for you, your usage goes up. When you have Luka looking for you, your efficiency goes up. So you have any kind of chemistry with Luka, that is a good thing. And maybe I'm just making it up, but from what I've seen, is that Lively does have some chemistry with him. So you're asking if Giannis misses, Porter would smash. Yeah, I mean that certainly makes sense to me. This is possible. It says, I mean, he hasn't missed a game in a month. So yeah, sure. I mean, and I guess I neglected that. Of course, like if Giannis is out, then never mind. Like if Giannis is out, then you have Portis at 5,500, who's going to be ridiculous, and Middleton, he's going to look really, really good. So when do you think you get this on Giannis? Now they've usually been pretty good on Giannis being out, so you probably get this sort of early. And again, the reason I keep harping on this are these two games, because it's not as if these are trash plays. You remember what we've been seeing the last I don't know, I can't even imagine how many slates in a row that I've been analyzing these, where you haven't found anybody under 6-7K that was even above like 5x. You know what I mean? Like this is really good. Like these are the best values in this range we've gotten in a while. So if you pass those up, waiting for that late news, you could be in trouble. But with any luck, the Giannis news does come out relatively early. Okay, let's now. Usually, what happens? We're going to do this right now. We're going to run a SaberSim build. And typically what's been happening is I identify all these plays, and then I run SaberSim, and we end up with 90% of a guy that I didn't mention at all. That's just the way the pricing structure has been nowadays. Like yesterday, for those of you who were here, remember we kept getting like 95% Nick Claxton no matter what I did? So let's see. Let's see what we get here. And again, we are uploading my projections into here. And we'll see what we come up with as I eat a pineapple. By the way, for those of you that are interested in this, I'm trying this for the first time because I made some time. I have time to do it as well. We're doing a live soccer stream at 1:30. There's a 2:30 slate. I think I have a process, or at least a schedule that I can adhere to make it useful. Where I go through the plays, go through the research, and then go through the lineup builds for the 2:30 slate. I'm gonna try it. You know, as with most things, it rates to be awful, but you never know. Okay, so when we do this right now, see, this is what I was sort of expecting. Like this is right. Philly, Toronto, Philly, Toronto, Philly, Toronto, and then a Nick. Okay. So this is legit. Did Sharp end up smashing? Oh, nice. I remember that. I think I played a couple lineups with him, but actually I didn't play any lineups. That's right. I was just doing builds. I just played the one lineup last night, which I think I got last. I'm not sure. Close to last. So these are what builds look like with Luka in. And interestingly, you know what you don't get any of? Luka. I mean, this is like all mid-range Philly, Toronto. It's a 7 p.m. slate. Put up your number. Be cashing for 6 figures after 15 minutes. Continue to cash for 6 figures after 2 hours, and then just hope to hang on for dear life. And that's hey, listen, that's certainly one way to sweat. Actually, this isn't true. We are getting some Luka. So we're getting Luka, 12% Luka, and the rest, all of this. All right, just for kicks, we will also do a contest sim. Well, this is what we do every day. Like this time, I use this time to set up the contest sim settings so that NBA is all about managing time. So if you could do this early in the day, like this is something that's not going to change if you use the sims, right? If you do this early in the day, like just set the settings, that's something you don't ever have to do again later in the day. And so you can focus on the other millions of things you might have to do. So let's run contest sims. See what we come up with. I think I'd also like to say the soccer thing I'm doing at 1:30. Partially, this is a little secret information. Part of it is selfish. Ooh, am I going to play any FanDuel tonight? Maybe. I don't know. I haven't looked at it yet. Ooh, why is it not letting me run these sims? Yeah, maybe listen. Just because you put it out there in the universe, Travis, maybe I will run that $3 FanDuel one. But one of the reasons I'm doing the soccer thing, and this is kind of inside information, is that I think that there, as far as I've been able to tell, there are no like live before lock soccer streams where people review late minute stuff and go over lineup builds and things like that. And quite honestly, there's so many people better than I am at soccer, that I'm hoping that people see and they say, oh, wow, I should probably be doing that. And having some of the better sites at soccer do that so that I get better information. So that's one of the reasons I'm doing it. But also, people want to know how I play, so I'm going to be sharing my process with you guys, and I think it's going to be useful. All right, so when I run the contest sim, and I look at, say, the fadeaway, it's not much different, right? So it's Philly, all kinds of Philly, all kinds of Toronto, and and listen, we can make min uniques 4 if we want, or whatever we want. It's going to be the same guys. The one thing that I would consider, if it's not there already, is maybe a rule where you don't play Bamba and Reed together. I think actually that makes sense. So you want to try that? Let's do that just for, again, something to do. Lineup rules. Should I do this? We'll do new rule, new group, add new rule. Where are we? Group, and we'll pull up Paul Reed and Mo Bamba, and we're going to play at no more than one primary player, and we'll call it Philly centers. Nice use of caps there, Sheets. But then what I want to do also, so I don't get like 100% of one of them, like 0 of the other, we'll do like max, like, I don't know, 67%? 67% Reed, and then max 67% Bamba, for example. And this way, we'll rebuild the lineups. This way, we'll probably get one of them in each, but we won't take a huge stand on either one of them. I'm just not convinced that you could play both of them in the same lineup. I mean, the argument is that between 4,800 and 4,000, you could play an $8,800 center that's going to get 48 minutes. I guess. But it's and I tried to fade that idea before. Who were those guys the other day? I think it was Utah guys. I forget who it was. You had 2 centers, both cheap. I think from San Antonio. Yeah, it was Collins and the other backup center, and they ended up playing together, and I got crushed trying to fade that. But I think I'll do the same thing today. All right, so here we go. So when you do that, you're actually getting a lot of Pirtle. Wow, let's go. So let's go to Uniques 3. We'll save these for now. We're not going to get fancy or anything like that. We can do some dupes. Save these. Upload. And just because he asked, let's you want to do an early FanDuel build? Let's go ahead and do this. Again, I'm not going to go through all the same details as before, but let's at least do something. See what it looks like. We'll save some stuff though. Let's see. And again, all this depends on the news, obviously. But again, the more you do, the less you have to do. So let's see. 50 lineups. Well, is it $3? Should I be? Is it? So is it a $3 150? Let's see. Hold on. I might actually do this now that you brought it up. NBA. Let's see. $3 10K for first. All right. You want to try this one? So could we want to reserve 150? Yeah, let's do that. Let's go for this. Let's have some fun. Just to at least show you guys how to play this. So let's build 150 for this. 10K for first. All right, so we're saving this. And then it's recommending these other ones for me. Should I take this as a sign that these are the tournaments they should recommend for me, the 25-cent ones? Maybe I should take that as a sign. But okay, here's FanDuel. We're going to make it 150 then. Let's take a look. Oh, here's another thing you do in advance. Hold on. So we will, I want to save this file. Download this file, and you're going to see why in a second. Okay, so first of all, you'll see it's almost exactly the same players. Except, look at this. You're getting a little more Franz Wagner in, but not much, right? 36%. You're 96% Tyrese Maxey. So the first thing we're going to do, first we're going to save these as is. Just so I have something. Save these to contests. And then we're going to save this contest sim again, so we don't have to save it later. Now we'll run it, 150. And for this, we're definitely going to do min uniques, like almost as many as we can. Okay. Want to get a lot of different combinations. It's a $3 tournament, zillions of players, zillions of entrants. I think that's the way you're supposed to play this one. So remember what you're doing, right? When you're moving from 1 unique to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, whatever, you're getting the worst, not the best 150 lineups, because the best 150 you're not making any rules, right? But you're getting a wider variety of combinations, which some could argue, right, make up for that. All right, so let's sort this by layup, risk-adjusted ROI. And then still 98% maxi. So now let's just jam the uniques here. 5 uniques. Here we go. Now is where you get like all kinds of different exposures. And that's kind of what I want in the $3. So let's save this. Excellent. Download this. So now we're going to have action. Okay. It's just a question of what the action looks like. But listen, this is the process at 12 o'clock. It's the best I can do. And it's funny, when we see our lineups later, when Luka's out and Giannis is out and all this stuff, you're like, what do we even do this for? But I do think this process is useful. Just the way to analyze this type of stuff to prepare. All right, so just so you guys know what's happening, at least for me today. So I got some stuff to do, and I got this 130. I'm going to do this 130 soccer thing, and then I'm going to do at some point an NFL lineup build. That's not going to be live though. I'm going to be too distracted. I wouldn't be able to put chat up. And then I'm going to do a hockey one as well. Those are all just going to be recorded and like up on the site in YouTube. I don't think I'm going to have time to go live and ask questions or anything like that. But if I do, you'll just get notifications, I guess. And then at 6, we're going to be live to do this NBA stuff.